From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and All India Radio, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell in London, where there's a special coronation around the corner, Coronation Week, and a special mention to our part-time presenter here, Ellie Oldroyd, who sometimes fills in for me on Stumped, who will be commentating on the coronation for BBC Radio. What an immense honour and privilege that will be. So good luck to you, Ellie. In the meantime, though, we know that rain stops play, swarms of bees have even stopped play, but men's and women's domestic cricket will continue on Saturday. It won't be paused for the coronation in any way, but there will be a moment at the start of each match where the national anthem will be played, so a little air of solemnity to mark the occasion, and then there'll be a lot of celebrations across the UK, and it's a long weekend as well, so another day off for everyone on Monday.
Oh, we all need some holidays, yes. Well, no one does pageantry like the Poms. They're the best, absolutely the best. And even though there are a few Republicans in Australia, I think, well, you won't have any choice actually here on Saturday night at 7:30. Every television station free to air will be showing the coronation. So get ready to be, coronated. Hello, it's Jim Maxwell in Sydney dribbling on here. And yes, I think cricket continues despite the coronation.
Hi, and I'm Sunil Gupta in New Delhi for All India Radio. And besides the weather, which has been completely unsettled in New Delhi, I think the big news, obviously besides the coronation, the IPL spats between Virat Kohli and Gautam Gambhir, which are now sort of almost mandatory. There's something that really nobody's talking about, but I thought is an absolutely huge achievement. There is this Indian naval sailor called Abhilash Tomi. And he has, and let me read this out to you because I think it's really worth a read. He has won the Golden Globe sailing tournament. So after sailing 236 days in his boat all alone across the globe to come second in this race, which ended in France. It started way back in 2022. I really wish, that a lot more people were talking about it, but unfortunately it clashed with the IPL. And so the IPL always takes precedence, as you know. Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. We tip our Stumped hat to him. I hope he had some, he was on his own. I hope he had some Stumped podcast episodes for company. We have to find out, Sunil. That's your task.
I will do that.
Right. First on Stumped this week, we are going to talk about short form cricket. Is there a breaking point for it, or will it be another part of the sport that breaks in order to accommodate the plethora of lucrative T20 leagues that are popping up all over the world? The Men's Indian Premier League continues to flourish, and the riches of that tournament and of the franchise owners has already spread into other parts of the world. We have IPL owners running all 6 franchises in the SA20 in South Africa. They own 3 of the 6 teams in the ILT20 in the UAE, a number in the Caribbean Premier League, and 4 of the 6 teams in the USA's new Major League Cricket, which starts in July. Now, all these leagues offer riches that simply a lot of international boards can't match. And there's talk of IPL owners wanting to offer year-round contracts to players, even multi-year deals, who would then have to be released to play internationally. So Jim and Sunil, we'll come to international cricket in a moment. But firstly, do you think that tournaments that don't attract private ownership are going to be left behind? Because the paychecks that, say, the Big Bash offers, the 100, the Pakistan Super League even, just cannot match what's on offer when these big commercial entities are involved, and particularly if they're going to be contracted to IPL teams. Sunil, should we start with you?
Oh, well, yes, I certainly think so. I mean, at the end of the day, what drives, let's say, tournaments like the IPL, it's not just the spectators in the stadium. It is the media rights, which have sold for an astronomical sum. I'm sure you must have read about it, some $1 billion. And of course, then the sponsors, right? And that's where the money really comes from. And you can see, and we were talking about people, the first Irish cricketer to play in the IPL, $500,000. That is not chicken feed, And so, when we talk about these things and where these tournaments are going, yes, of course, these tournaments will flourish, and I think it's a good thing. But I think the important thing to understand is that the boards themselves cannot in any way compete with private sponsors. And we're talking about really big conglomerates who are sponsoring these teams.
Jim, do you reckon the likes of Cricket Australia and the ECB will get left behind by themselves on the outer if they can't compete?
They will, because India will run the game. That's where all the money is. And it's a worry for the game with all this commerce around the game of cricket. It's all about T20. Test cricket's sort of over there, but continues to be viable. And I think the form of the game that a lot of people still respect and a lot of players want to play. But as we move on, T20 is going to become more of the mainstream, and it's going to be around the commercial aspects of T20 and the ownership, whatever it may be. We're talking about the United States getting involved now. We're also talking about trying to proselytize the game through the Olympic Games in Los Angeles. I just don't think there's any stopping these sort of juggernaut of momentum that's with T20, and it'll overrun the English thing, the 100, because the 100 is a no-no, really. It doesn't exist anywhere else but in England.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So in terms of money, we've seen Cricket Australia increase their salary cap to try and ward off competition for the Big Bash and keep their top talent, because they lost a lot of players last season to the T20 in the UAE and South Africa. But whether that's enough to retain the best players, you wonder, and particularly not if they do get offers of multi-year deals with an IPL-owned team. But as a format, that the 100 is coming into increasing question. You're right, Jim, and it's been in the headlines in the papers here in recent days. So as a format, it's coming into its third year, but even last year it struggled to keep players for the duration, and it has hit brilliant gender targets amongst its audience, largely due to staging double headers with the women's game. Crucially, though, it's made a £9 million loss, $11.2 million US. That was a figure given in a recent report after the ECB had claimed to have made a $14 million profit. So it all depends on what columns you put the numbers into and the various costs and what you associate as a direct cost of the 100 versus a broader cost. But that loss doesn't even account, Sunil, for a figure of over $30 million. It was a payment like a sweetener made to the counties and MCC in 2019 to actually back the idea. So it's a money-losing competition at the moment.
That's the problem for the 100. If it's not being aped elsewhere in the world, what's the point? Just stick with T20. And there's not much talk in Australia about the 100, because if you want to watch it, most of us are asleep. Even though the women's side of the 100s work very, very well. I see that. But longer term, it just doesn't seem to be viable.
Well, two players who will be going head-to-head in the World Test Championship final are in fact teammates over these next few weeks, because Cheshire Pujara has been joined at Sussex County Cricket Club by Steve Smith. And for Smith, well, it's a few games ahead of both the World Test Championship final and the Ashes series. And Jim, Steve Smith's been doing the media welcome, if you like, ahead of his stint with Sussex this week. And he's been asked specifically about something Stuart Broad has been talking about whether the Aussies will get, well, Broad is hoping they're going to get lured into playing the Bazball style of cricket, try and emulate what England are doing and find themselves getting a bit unstuck at trying to score at rapid rates per over.
In some ways, this is the most exciting entree to an Ashes series that we have ever had, because the two top nations are playing against each other in the warm-up to the Ashes, and it's just constant cricket. There's never been an Ashes series where the only cricket played for 2 months is a test match. So it's going to be very intense, and I think England's recent form, as good as it's been, is going to be acutely examined by the efficiency, resilience, discipline of Australia's cricket. And so we'll just see what happens with dear old Bazball. But I think Smith will just play it as he did before. He got a lot of runs here last time, as I recall.
No, he did.
Jofra Archer, his perch. And I have a very strong feeling that Jofra Archer will not play one test match this summer.
I tend to veer towards that opinion as well, Jim. It would be quite a thing if he does. I think the test team is quite well established. The bowling unit is quite well established now without him even. Yes, he could bring an injection of pace, but could he? And can he sustain it over a test match when he's completely untested and unwarmed up? Speaking of warm-ups, Sunil, Try telling Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli that the World Test Championship final is a warm-up for the Ashes series.
I don't think they're even thinking about it right now, Ali. I can tell you, they've got the IPL on their heads. Rohit Sharma is in dreadful form, as you might have heard or read. Somewhere Virat Kohli is in middling form. And I think that they've got the IPL really on their heads right now. Nobody's really thinking about the World Test Championship, unfortunately, except dear old Pujara, who's been there in England for some time, leading Sussex, by the way. He's the captain of Sussex right now. So that's the interesting part. I do wish that India had, allowed a few more players to go who are not playing the IPL. But India, that's entirely up to them. Most of them are playing the IPL, which is a problem we talked about earlier. But no, I don't think so. I don't think anybody's thinking about that right now over here.
Yeah, I found it quite remarkable the amount of fuss that has been made about Sussex supposedly giving the Aussies a helping hand by giving Steve Smith some games. I think, where was the fuss around Marnus Labuschagne playing for Glamorgan over the last 3 seasons? Because I'd be much more worried about the amount that Labuschagne has been learning through playing English conditions over the last few years. Steve Smith has been there and done it here in the UK. He's played Ashes series here. This will be, apart from a bit of an appearance, Labuschagne came on as concussion sub, didn't he, in the last series? But I think Labuschagne has a propensity to be a hugely damaging player for the Aussies in this particular Ashes series. Well, finally on Stump this week, we're joined by a woman who is breaking barriers on the field in a different sort of way. New Zealand-born Meg Lay is the only female member of ground staff working at an international venue in England. Now, she works at the county ground in Bristol, which is where Gloucestershire play in the county championship, and she joins us on Stumped now. Meg, great to have you on. One of the reasons you're able to join us today is because Gloucestershire actually have a week off in the county championship. So just how busy are you normally?
Oh, it's been full on. I mean, we had 220 mils of rain in March alone. So, yeah, I mean, Deputy Head Groundsman's been here for 40 years and he's said he's never seen anything like it.
And we don't speak to too many ground staff members on Stumped. So we'll get into in a minute about how you got into it all. But what does your day-to-day role involve? Talk us through it.
This is what I love about the job. It's like every single day it's different. There's different problems that come up, things you would never expect to see. We do it all. We'll cut the grass, we prepare the pitches, there's maintenance on machinery, there's sight screens, all sorts, as well as all the planning that goes into the background. There's the pest control, all the agronomy side of things too, which I find really interesting.
What time does your alarm go off each day?
5:30. get the bus just after 6.
And you'll be the last to leave on a match day.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, it's the big shifts on match days, especially when you've got the 4-day games.
Hi, Meg. Jim Maxwell in Sydney. Just tell us a bit about your history growing up in New Zealand and your introduction to cricket.
I'm from a pretty rural part of New Zealand. I grew up on my grandparents' farm. So always had an agricultural background. Both my parents played cricket, so naturally I got into it quite young. I still play now, and as well as doing a bit of voluntary ground stuff. I never thought it could be a job. So it's sort of given me the perfect background to end up and work like this, combining like my love of sport as well as agriculture.
So why ground? What was it that made you want to do that rather than something else, agricultural? I
sort of always pictured myself playing professionally as a young kid. That's what I wanted to do, even though the structure wasn't really there yet. That's what I envisioned myself doing. But I realised I enjoy sport much more when I'm playing for the fun of it with a good social team. And then this opportunity came up where I could still be involved in professional sport and, bumping shoulders with some of the biggest names in the game and still incorporate like my farming background as well. So it's the perfect mix of everything I'm interested in.
Hi, Meg. This is Sunil Gupta for All India Radio, as far away as New Delhi. And I was fascinated by what you were saying because when we're watching a game or commentating on a game, we talk about the grounds people, but they're sort of very much in the background. And, what you told me about getting up at 5:30 and doing all these things, it's phenomenal, really. We don't think about these things. So thank you. In all the years that you've been doing this, what's the big highlight? And what's the one thing that you really remember, the pitch you prepared or something that you did that stood out for you?
I think the biggest one for me was when we had the England women playing here. and Sophia Dunkley got her first century for England. That was amazing. I know Dunks personally, and she's an amazing human, and it was amazing to see her get that on a pitch that I'd helped prepare. And I mean, as much as I'm ashamed to say it as a Gloucestershire fan, last week Pujara got 150 on a pitch that we prepared, that was a pretty special moment too.
Well, there you are. Perfect preparation for the World Test Championship final. We were just talking about that. Now, you're the only lady, at this level, first-class cricket or in international ground. Why are no more women coming through in this particular profession? I'm sure you'd like to see more of them, but why aren't they coming through? What's holding them back? What would you say to them, if they came and asked you for a bit of advice?
The good news is about a month ago, a new woman's joined. So there's now a woman working at Headingley, Jasmine, which is amazing. From the outside looking in, I think it's purely because there is no representation of women at all, and it can be intimidating when you see the industry is essentially older men. But from my experience, there's been absolutely nothing to worry about. They're the best bunch of guys I could ever imagine working with. Once you start the job, you're part of the club, and everyone will look out for you. But it is essential that we do get women into the role, and not just to tick boxes. It's becoming quite critical in terms of staff retention and recruitment. And unfortunately, I think women's sport will suffer as a result. So we have half the population out there that need to put their hands up so we can get women's sports teams playing on the bigger stages. We need to help prepare those stages. And I think there's a lot of untapped potential there.
Sounds a bit similar to the commentary scene, Meg. When I first started, there were no women doing it. And brilliant that what you're doing and just that visibility will certainly have an impact. But just tell us briefly then, and what did you have to do qualifications, and what would be a pathway for somebody to actually get a foot into ground staffing, groundskeeping?
Well, this is it. I assumed you would need a PhD to work at like an international venue. I really did. But then my agricultural background and my knowledge of cricket as well, I did study agriculture for a while. That all came into play. But there are qualifications that you can do through the Grounds Management Association website, which I'm currently working through. But there are plenty of paths you can do, whether it's soil science, agronomy.
That's good to hear. Meg, good luck. Enjoy the rest of the season. I'll certainly keep an eye out for you and say hi if I get to Bristol this season. Thanks for coming on Stumped.
Thanks very much.
That is Meg Lay, who is making a name and certainly being very visible. One of, as we know, only two female ground staff working at international grounds here in the UK. Well, that's all we've got time for on this week's Stumped. So my thanks to Jim Maxwell and Sunil Gupta, and of course to all of you for listening. And make sure that you join us again next week. See you then. Bye-bye.
From the BBC World Service in association with ABC and All India Radio, this is Stumped.